And Brian, thank you. Well, brand new Fox News polls showing voters have little appetite for President Biden staying in the White House. In fact, 64% say they do not want Mr. Biden to run for re-election in 2024. Let's bring in Dr. Lauren Wright, political scientist at Princeton University. Okay, Dr. Wright, so Fox News poll aside for a second, is the majority of the Democratic Party behind President Biden for a second term?
Well, yes, they are, in a sense. There's mixed polling that shows a lot of people want an alternative. But the bottom line is probably that if Biden wants to run and runs, he won't receive much of a challenge at all. I think the actual real mess for Democrats is if Biden does not run, because then anointing a successor is really complicated and awkward, and Democrats are essentially then choosing among candidates who Biden already beat in 2020, are virtually unknown, or are controversial for a variety of reasons. So if given a choice, I can't see Democrats not going with the incumbent president.
Well, let's go to that list, for instance. If President Biden does not run for a second term, let's look at the most likely 2024 Democratic presidential fields. OK, here we go. Vice President Kamala Harris. You've got Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Congressman Ro Khanna of California, California Governor Gavin Newsom, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. I mean, so is there a front runner in this group, you think?
Well, traditionally, and according to recent history, you would think it would be Vice President Kamala Harris. And presidents do typically endorse their vice presidents. But in this case, frankly, Arthel, I don't know if I see that happening. She is less popular than the president himself, to the tune of about 6 points. And my research shows that's really unusual. She's less popular than her vice presidential predecessors. And there's been reporting throughout her whole career about her office mismanagement, whether it's turnover, whether it's leaking, whether it's managing finances.
Well,
and of course, we remember she dropped out let me jump in 2019. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, just for a second. I mean, I can't speak of her term, her office management way back when she was in California. So I don't want to kind of get into that right now, but I just wanted to speak to her as vice president. Mm-hmm. And I understand that there was concern and questions in terms of just kind of how everything was run inside of that. I'm not sure if it's people skills or what have you, but sticking to this particular point. So if not Vice President Harris, then who? Anybody?
Well, you could look at
Democratic side.
Yeah, I mean, so again, you either have the choice between people Biden already beat soundly. So Buttigieg would be one of those. He won the caucus, the very first Iowa caucus. But, he might be held responsible for Republicans in Congress who are about to look into how transportation funds were doled out as part of the infrastructure package. And so we're caught in this problem in American politics where it's too early to tell quite what comes up and whose record will be examined. But it would be very awkward if Buttigieg was endorsed by the Biden administration over Kamala Harris, who's the sitting vice president and heir apparent. And so those are a bunch of situations Democrats might not want to get themselves into. Other gubernatorial candidates, you mentioned Whitmer and Newsom just won handily, but they have a lot of scrutiny over how they handled COVID, respectively, in those states. And those records will come up. Then you have candidates like Khanna, who people don't really know who he is.
Really quickly, if we're talking about who can win the general, let's go on the GOP side.
Yep.
Is it Governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, or is it the former President Donald Trump in terms of who can win the general?
Trump running is a nightmare for Republicans, frankly, because he probably can't win a national election. However, we all remember 2016 when there was this huge primary field. That's probably what Republicans are looking at again. Trump came in with 92% name recognition and took up all of the oxygen in the room. And Republicans should not be mistaken. They can absolutely fall into that trap again with a large field. But DeSantis, so far he's really built an impressive record without the scrutiny that a presidential campaign will absolutely bring once he likely announces.
Well, there's a long time in between now and then, and we will keep a watch out on everything. Thank you, Dr.